Hello! That was Runtown. Ghana girls want to marry him. That's the song. He says, Ghana girls, he's mad over the Ghana girl who wants to marry him. So that is beautiful. That is exceptionally beautiful. Good evening, listeners. Hello and welcome to Kiki's Chat Show today on GN Radio, Wednesday the 31st of October, the last day of October. Now, October did a lot of good things. October produced a lot of good birthdays as well. October, my brother's birthday was in October. October is a tough month for me because my dad died in October. Some people say my dad passed away in October. So when October comes, it brings this kind of painful memory feelings. And then after a little while, a week after that, while we're still in pain, it's my brother's birthday. And then after that, it's our festival from, us, the mountain people. And October is full of all sorts. But anyway, today is the last day of October. And today, I've got my guest, Norma Ellis, who is becoming a regular on my show because she's full of pearls of wisdom. And she's full of knowledge and she's full of balance, this balance thing. And Norma is actually somebody who's been writing a book and she's on her way to publishing it, and she's actually about to have a launch. And Norma, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Do you know, if I could have carried on and would not stop saying all the wonderful things about you.
Oh, thank you so much.
And how wonderful you are, wonderful. You are a wonderful person. And I'm very glad to know you.
Me too, likewise.
Now, today the topic is polygamy. Polygamy and its effects on families and how we view polygamy. But before we actually go into the polygamy and, Norma may tell us whether she agrees with it or not. The strangest thing occurred a few weeks ago when a pastor called Reverend Daniel Eshun of Ghana, West Africa, said that by the year 2020, there will be 3 million women ranging from the ages of, between 15 and 55, who will have no husbands, let alone children. They will not have boyfriends. They will need men to entertain them. And, so it's going to become a survival of the fittest. Mm-hmm. And he said that in view of this catastrophe, there will be prostitution, extramarital affairs, unwanted pregnancies, abortions, and terrible sexual diseases. Now, on the back of that, it's not on the back of it, because independently, on the side of this amazing statement that the guy makes, there was the president of Tanzania, who is called John Magufuli, has advised his people, in fact, he said this in February 2018, to be generous and liberal and marry as many single women as possible so that women felt wanted and embraced in society. He also said that, polygamy was necessary to reduce prostitution in the East African country. Now, that is serious because, polygamy was there in the time of, cave time, in the time of history. There's been polygamy. Polygamy has been there all the time. But there are a lot of things about polygamy that are not attractive. And therefore, if you looked at it on the surface of it, it's just it doesn't work. However, some people are beginning to say that it's even in the Bible.
It is in the Bible.
Really? Which part of the Bible?
I will not be able to quote chapter and verse, but obviously it's something that has always been in the Bible, where and in lots of culture, not just the Bible of culture, but in lots of different culture.
I know where in the Bible.
It always has been. Yeah, we talked about that the other night, didn't we?
Because I know where it is. It is in Isaiah chapter 4 verse 5. For those people who like to quote the Bible and act on the Bible and not think deeply about anything else but the Bible.
Absolutely.
And it says, and in that day, 7 women will take hold of one man and say, we will eat our own food and provide our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name to take away our disgrace. Now, that is to say that women are going to be so desperate that it will be 7 to 1.
Women have always outnumbered men. But I think now that the gay rights and men are coming out of the closet, a lot of men are in jail and they also have institutional behavior. I think those are the things is going to happen. Even if you go to some of the churches, you'll see that women have always outnumbered men in church. So you've only got to take a look at some of the congregation to see that there's more women than men. And it's not because men don't want to become Christians or serve God. It's really because women have always outnumbered men. But it's nature.
Are you saying that there are more women in the world than men, basically?
Yes, there is. I mean, it takes one man can fertilize, use his sperm to foster many children, and one woman can only bear so many children. Sometimes we can only have one, sometimes we're lucky to have more than one, but that's the way nature is. Definitely has been, and there has to be more women to replenish the world.
There has to be more women.
Absolutely, by nature standard.
So what are we saying? Are you for polygamy, basically?
I am for polygamy because we shouldn't really judge these things.
No.
And I think in our society nowadays, we probably don't realize that we are living polygamous life. And it's already happening. You can call it side chick. You can call it men having affairs. You can put whatever century that we're in name on it, but it's always been. It's just a little bit more open now because everybody's living more authentic and more truthful life and not afraid to be labeled. Women are not afraid to be labeled, to say, well, I'm the side chick. And some men have the right balance and the right approach in putting relationships together that they, they call it player. He's a player.
The man is a player.
You have so many different modern names for it, but it's something that's in our society. And a lot of women are in marriages and they don't even realize that they're sharing their husbands. Not only with other women, but sometimes they're also sharing their husbands with other men. And that's the truth of life. And until we start becoming, sort of open and honest and learn, it's about us loving ourselves first. Women don't like to hear that. Women like to still have that fairy tale of my man, one man, he loves me only. And they wouldn't want to entertain that. And they're saying, no, not me. I think on Monday when I was at school, I was explaining to the girls that I was going to possibly be on the show and we was going to be talking about it. And of course, the consensus within the conversation was, no, I wouldn't even put up with it. I wouldn't this, I wouldn't that. But sometimes the things that we resist in life the most are the things that do persist. So the things that we need to do is about learning first to be at peace with ourselves, to first love ourselves and work on our own emotions of being jealous, learn to be forgiving, and learn to value our own self and our own self-worth before somebody else can do that. And maybe when we do that, maybe we can find a happy place to be with. That if it's unfortunate enough for us to fall in love with a man who is already married, who already has a woman or whatever is going on, and if that's what the experience has to be for us to learn something, I don't believe that one should resist those experiences, because it makes you a better version of yourself.
Okay,
you can come out of it better at the end, regardless of how you look at it. It's painful, but it can make you come out a better person at the end of it.
The thing about the meaning of polygamy, before we even go any further, is a man who marries several women.
Women, yes.
Not just one, but 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, it was necessary years ago, especially with the rich men who were landowners, to marry a lot of women,
Absolutely.
to have a lot of children, so that they would work the land. Now, if you were unfortunate not to have a lot of women, then you had less people working on your land, and you had less crops, and you had less to eat, etc. Increasingly,
Of course.
the world has changed.
It has changed.
Apart from the changing of it, it has become, there are religious factions, there are areas where there's religion controlling what you do. The Christians, for example, do not believe in polygamy.
Absolutely not.
So there are many countries, America, you're in Europe, all over the place, there it is illegal
It is, yes.
to be in a polygamous situation. So even in Africa, there's several countries where polygamy is not legal, but however,
It happens.
it is happening right under your nose, and it is dressed up in different ways. So, for example, in some West African countries where they are Christian, one wife, the main wife, would be married in the church and traditionally. Additionally, the wives that come after that would be married traditionally, because traditional marriage accepts polygamy. It is not frowned upon. Now, those people who think they've arrived and they're Christian and they are doing all the right things from the Bible, etc., etc., they do not accept it. They're more educated, they say, and they're more awoke.
Of course.
So this is unacceptable. But in truth, in this particular world that we live in now, if you are in a polygamous situation, I think it affects the children. I think that there is jealousy. I think we don't have enough space there is not enough space to live independently of other women. There will be jealousy. There will be envy. Now, also, what if the man married 3 and 2 had children and 1 didn't? What happens then? Because, and these are some of the issues that I think is deadly. And one of the things which used to happen in Africa, say, where they all lived in a radius of each other, when, depending on how much one of the wives could deal with, or if she was in favor, for example, the children, then her children, were looked after and they went to all the right schools. Sometimes the rest are not seen in that way. So education becomes a problem. So some are well off than others. Some eat better if the wife has more to offer in addition to what her husband gives her. So all of these things bother me. I'm not saying that I am against it, but I have seen it in action.
But I think it's in action in our lives anyway, because you find that when a man is having more than one relationship, he has his wife, and you may have 2 or 3 women outside of that relationship. That's the same thing that goes on. You know, jealousy. There's going to be, the children are going to suffer. Some of them don't get looked after as well as they should be. So the issues are not different. The issues are still the same from time, you know, from the biblical times. If you watch some of those biblical movie or the stories, you see one of the wives, you know, put a snake and kill the other wife. And
in the Bible.
There's all those, you know. Have you ever watched some of those films that they recreate? And some of those films, you know, I want my son to be the king, you know, so I'm going to get rid of the other kids, or I'm going to get rid of the other wife. So it's always been something that, even though in society it's been legal for centuries and years, and you know, there've always been those problems of jealousy and someone not being equally looked after or equally loved, and there's always going to be that issues. And I think that's when, you know, if we're going to have this kind of crisis happening within the next 20 or 30 years, because there's going to be that shortage and things are changing, we're going to have to really work a lot on ourselves. We're going to have to work on our emotions, because this is what it's all about, is our emotions, and sort of valuing ourselves a lot more than we do now, you know?
Well, somebody's saying on Facebook, let's not ignore the many and increasing number of women who do same in this modern world.
And the women do. And
you mean the women marry too? Marry?
Women don't marry, but they have polygamous relationship. I mean, as I was saying to you, when we had this long talk, when you were thinking about doing this show, you know, I know one woman, and she also has the relationship where she has 2 men. And I know plenty of other relationships as well where women do have more than 1 man. So it's not just a man thing, it's also a woman thing, and it's just a human being thing. And we will do whatever we need to do if it suits us. And that's why it's so difficult when we start becoming judgmental about culture, or about people and their different choices that people make. This is where we get ourselves into, you know, all kinds of issues, where we just need to learn to deal with ourselves, you know, and not to judge other people if that's their choice.
Somebody said polygamy helps to prevent or minimize adultery.
It does.
There
is. I do not know which culture men or in Africa, but I've watched a TV program where there is I think they're desert people. They live in the desert, and once a week the men are going to dress up. They're going to put on their makeup, they're going to put on their best headdress, and they're going to look really nice, and they spend all day pruning and grooming themselves. And the women are the ones
who choose the men,
that chooses the men that I'm gonna have him tonight. Yes, because once a week they can choose whoever they want to be with. And if they've been watching a guy all week and thinking, I like him, and they choose that one man that they want to spend that night with, and the wives also, yes. And this is I think it's a desert people, some desert people that lives in the desert, and that's what they do. So if you're going to have communities that are not very big, you're going to find that this is what happens in smaller groups. So yes, it's going on.
The women choose the men.
The women choose the men. Yes. and the men had to dance and perform, and some of the women were saying when they're there watching the guys, one of the women was saying, "Oh, don't choose him, he's not any good. I had him last week, he was rubbish." So those things go on.
We need to go to that country.
It goes on. So it's about us not getting into judgmental, because we live in such a, this European kind of lifestyle,
You see, this is the anomaly, because
and it's about control.
No. The Europeans do the same thing.
But they do.
In this country,
They do.
There are men who are having affairs.
They do.
And
their wife behave themselves because they have the money.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose that.
Yeah.
And they allow their husbands to do that. So it does happen.
Quite a lot of women, they say they turn a blind eye because they allow their husbands to do whatever. It's a nice relationship where, he looks after her children, life is good, they live in a nice house.
Absolutely.
She has jewelry and all of that.
Absolutely.
And then we have you and I, and normal people who, our husbands are not rich or, so you're in a relationship with a man and he doesn't have enough to be spreading it all over the place. He can't look after her.
Absolutely.
So now there are men who make it's like a badge of honor when a woman doesn't spend on him, but he's busy having sex with her, etc. And that is unacceptable. But slowly it is becoming acceptable because they don't have much to give, and why are women so greedy?
Yes.
But the whole idea was women, anthropologically, women look for a strong man, the hunter, the gatherer.
Yes.
You look for somebody who has strong genes to provide strong sons and daughters, healthy children. Also, they look for a man who's going to provide food, clothing, and shelter.
Yes, definitely.
So, are we doing it wrong then? Because in those days, a man could do all of this. Of course, with the help of the woman, she looks after the children and all of this coming and going. But basically, there is Daddy Bear.
Yes.
And at the moment, the men are not daddy bears anymore.
No, they're not.
So how does person who's not a daddy bear manage 3 wives? They'll kill him. They'll eat him alive. And the women are strong now.
They are.
In mind. I mean, we're not talking physical, but the women are very single-minded now. And they're
Yes, we are.
getting out of hand, basically,
I think once
socially.
Once things started, and I think that downfall of our family unit started breaking apart around the late sort of at the early 90s, very much on the tip of the late 80s and the early 90s, when they started taking away all the jobs that men could do, like work in factories and
the women.
No, they took away the men jobs. The men used to work in factories. They were, at the brewery and all these things. And they took all these jobs and they took them abroad. I saw that happened here. And it started happening here, especially with our black community of men who didn't have the right education to do certain jobs, but working with their hands. And once that was taken away from them, and the women were allowed to go to university, they started dropping the entry levels for black women to enter into university, to become social workers, to become all kind of different kind of jobs that women entered into. And the very few men who had the opportunity to go in technology, and that was when the change I saw really started changing, even within our black community, and breaking our families apart, because men were not able to provide. And then women became strong. They became the breadwinners and became far more independent. And that's when you start hearing the baby mothers, they would start having another woman and another woman and another woman, more than they used to.
You see, in truth, first of all, the men went to war, and whilst they were away,
there was that as well.
The women started working, doing their job.
There was that as well.
When the men came back, the women had kind of taken over and were doing all of those things, so it became problematic.
There was that as well.
Now, when you talk of black people. Women were seen as less of a threat than men who African, black African men, strong, Caribbean men, black men basically, were more aggressive, not easy on the eye. So it became difficult if I think
You're having a feedback.
yeah, having feedback. So it was becoming very difficult for the men to get jobs. That's why the women became the breadwinners. But in that kind of situation, there is no way that these men could have 2 and 3 wives. What they did was that they were having the women were becoming tough and strong and difficult for them. So they would visit them, they'd eat, they do, and then the women started having children, but they felt that they could look after them without the silly man being in the way, etc. And that is a negative. That is not a, that is this is not a pro. That is a con, because it does, as you said, unravel the family unit, and which is not acceptable. In Africa, it is very different, because the man, however weak he is seen culturally as the alpha male. And because he's seen as the alpha male, he is allowed to do certain things whether he has money or not, because he is encouraged by culture, by tradition. And that also can be galling if you are, if you look at it properly and you think, I am worthy, I need my own man, I can't be doing this. Because you see, there is a pecking order in a family setting where there is polygamy, and it's not very nice. This is my thought.
Well, I think, as I say, culture is going to be different all over the world. You have an African culture which is very strong, and then you have a British culture or European culture, which is completely a different idea. And so we have different challenges when it comes to coming out of our own culture and coming into this culture. There's going to be changes, because you can see even with a lot of our men that came from the Caribbean, or they came from Africa, when they come here, it's a completely different thing for them. They have a completely different playground. It's a different playground for them, because the European culture is so different. When I lived in Switzerland, as I was saying to you, they have their own way of dealing with this kind of lifestyle.
All of them?
The Swiss people are very much a peacekeeping people, and that's why they carry that red flag, because they have that skill. They have that kind of emotions. And when I lived there, my friend, her husband, father, he lived with his wife for 4 days a week, and then he lived with his girlfriend for 3 days a week.
Hold that thought. I'm going to play some music, and when we come back, this song is called Selfish. Hey, that song is called Selfish. He's going to be selfish with her. He loves her, etc., etc., etc. Usual love song. Now, you were saying.
Yes, I was saying in Switzerland they do sort it out, and even my friend's sister, she lived with her husband during the week, and at weekends she would leave and go stay with her lover, and then
The woman.
yes, and then his lover would move into the house, and that's
So
how.
it was an open relationship where
Well, that's
they
how.
were loving and loving and loving each,
Well, yeah,
each
I
one.
mean, that's how they.
My best friend is your best friend. My lover is your. Oh
I don't
my
know
God.
about that, but you know, they do sort out the problems, and they try to make sure that if someone has a need, that they sit around, they talk about it. Is it going to be good for that person? Because sometimes, you know, there's loads of things that we have inside of us. There's fantasies that we have inside of us that we want to fulfill, but because we're so committed to what we think is love, that we don't always have the experiences in life that we really want to, because we're so committed, and then, you know, all of a sudden the other person might go off, and then we're left, and then what do we do?
You see, but still, I mean, all of this, you look, if, for example, in many cases, not in a few go, but I'm going to give an example, and it's a stark one, and it's across board, it's across the world. And no one is saying that the European way is better than the African way or any of those things. The fact of the matter is, in this present life, where there are no farms anywhere, and it's just a man goes to work, a woman goes to work, come back, they're all tired. Somehow the woman is left with the children and the man goes off and all of that. Somebody is saying on Facebook, a friend of mine is saying, it's going to change now because people, the perception is that women want children. But it's going to be soon that, you know, a woman doesn't necessarily, if the both of us want children, fine. But she doesn't want a child to hold her back, basically. So things are changing. And in the same way, if you and your husband decided to swing, when you are young at a certain stage, for both of them, it's fun. But then after a while, things change. It's either the man or the woman decides that this swinging is I don't want it anymore. But the other partner is quite keen to carry on. Invariably, they say that, you know, in this 2018, it's been said that women get bored sexually with their husbands faster than men do. However, women are more controlled and well behaved because it's either the Bible, the Quran, or something has told, or society, tradition, or culture, or society is insisting that the woman stays good and whereas it is natural for a man to do whatever he wants. Now it's becoming unacceptable. In Ghana at the moment, a very well-known footballer has decided that his wife had an affair and that his children, he's not even sure that his children are his children, so he wants to have a DNA test on them. And he's saying that, you know, the woman is losing blah, blah, blah. And he is in an affair and wants to get out of his marriage to go and marry that woman. It's all over the papers. We have a group of women called the Pepper Them Ministries, and they're saying that is absolute nonsense. Flip the script. And if that is the case, if you can do it, she can do it. Because all along his marriage, he's been having affairs. And people say, oh, that's natural. Men can do this. Men are this and that and the other. Why is it that he is using his wife?
He will, to get out of it.
To get out of it and say, you see, I cannot believe that in my lifetime I am seeing this stupidity being challenged. This is exciting for me because I think that, you know, I think that men should not, and they have been given the license to do all sorts of things. What they do, I think that polygamy brings disease into the home. You know, I mean, because you don't know. I mean, while some people will be satisfied more than others, and therefore they will go and try and do things, and then come back, and then it's a husband, so, you know, he freely does whatever he has to do, and then he gives it to wife number 3, wife number 1, you know, and endless. Now, there are a lot of situations where people have so many wives that the wives start having affairs with other people because they hardly see the man. What about that? The point is polygamy good for families? Is it acceptable?
I think if it's controlled and if everybody agrees. I was watching a polygamy family on Facebook.
Sister wives.
I can't remember what it was, but and it was very much agreed and it was controlled, and everybody was making sure that they all live together in the same house. I think where it goes wrong is when you all live in a different house. So you're over there, you're over there, you're over there.
This is what you think.
I think that's when it goes wrong. But I think if everybody lives within that household, I think maybe that's how it works a lot better.
I don't think so.
Than when they have different houses, and then maybe, as you say, one woman that doesn't get enough time, and so she's going to feel as if she's left out, and then she feels as if, oh, I'll go and have an affair. And start doing something.
She feels I'll go and have an affair.
Yeah, I mean it's natural.
I mean people just think
people do. People do. And women have more affairs than men. It's known.
Of course. It's not known. It's not known, but they do.
They do, because women are always searching for that better feeling. Because sometimes you are loving someone and you're so in love with them, but they can't provide you with all that better feeling. And we know what we're talking about, that better feeling, when we say that. So they go in search of having that better feeling. And if they find someone that can give them that high that they're looking for, that fix that they're looking for, of course, it's going to happen. And what about when so many of our men are in jail? There's a lot of men are in jail now. And so what does a woman do when... I mean, I know when I was in America in the 80s, and they were giving black men sentencing. They were giving black men sentencing like 17 years, 25 years. And that was some long sentence for you to sit around and wait for your husband.
No, but let's not talk about your husband. Let's talk about
our
husband.
I'm talking about
like
women.
3 women who have one husband who's in jail. What happens to the 3?
Well, this is it. So what are they going to do if he's gone to jail for 20 years? Are they supposed to sit and wait?
Yeah,
what do they do?
No, why not? That is the plan. If you
I don't think humanly being possible that a woman is going to say that they're going to sit and wait for their husband for 23 years and they don't do something while they're waiting for that husband. You can be committed to that person, you can wait, but your body is going to need some looking after.
Well, people don't think their bodies need looking after. It's programs like this that tell them that, oi, your body needs looking after.
They do.
So
do.
Because
a lot of women use the church to go into and to hide their feelings and to sit on their feelings. But really and truly, that is a big challenge. And can they really put their hands on the heart and say that it's not a challenge? Even if they can do it, even if they accomplish it, it's a challenge.
Somebody said to me that if you have a church where there is a lady called Sister Gertrude, and every time the singing comes on, she sings with such emotion and such, and it's like it's becoming orgasmic. It's either her husband is in prison, she is the 3rd or 4th wife,
or she's shouting hallelujah louder. She's the one that's running up and down the aisle and shouting hallelujah louder.
Sister Gertrude.
Yes, Sister Gertrude. There's many Sister Gertrudes.
Many Sister Gertrudes of different,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The problem is, I think that in this present day, with education, with financial independence,
Absolutely.
and all of that, for a woman to be financially independent,
yes,
and then to want to be the 3rd wife of Oga.
Yeah, she's not going to be, is she? If you're financially independent as a woman, it's very rare that she's going to be that 3rd wife or she's going to be that 2nd wife. You know, she's going to want to be the one that's in control, and she's going to want to be that because she can provide.
But they do say, though, that the women, it's in the Bible. We just read it. I read that.
Yeah.
And where the woman is capable of clothing herself. She's financially
Absolutely.
independent. And she can even have a child without a father. But all she wants is to be somebody's wife and to be loved. You know, so that is something that is in the Bible for the Sister
Future.
Gertrude to worry about. Do you see what I mean? But are you saying, because even if you're financially independent, even if you are, you know, are high up the scale and all of that, do you not feel lonely?
Of course they do.
So are you then going to accept to be the fourth wife of somebody?
Sometimes you're forced to. Sometimes you're forced to. Because sometimes we also don't choose who we fall in love with. And if we fall in love with John, and John happens to have 2 wives already, sometimes, you know, we're going to take what little bit we can get from John.
But how good is John? He may not be a nice man. You see,
he may not be good. He may not be good at anything, but, you know, sometimes, you know, when a woman is in love, she just loves that man for whatever reason that she falls in love. She can love that man for all different kind of reasons.
But are you then saying that women just marry because of love? Because the majority of them are not in love with the people they marry. Now, somebody said to me the other day that she never loved her husband when she met him to marry him. And she still does not love him. But he's a good father. He's a good provider. And she has never actually been sidetracked because she wants to stay in the straight and narrow. And I find that unfulfilling.
Well, you know, we all have different disciplines. And we can only live our lives according to our strengths. And we live our life according to our weaknesses as well. So really, that's why it's so difficult to be judgmental to anyone who's going through anything. The most that we can do to people is to support them while they're going through whatever they're going through until they find their way out. Because my way of thinking and my way of living, it cannot work for someone else because they're not at that level.
Yeah, but you listen to me. In polygamous marriages, it is very rare that all the children are on an even keel with their father. Do you understand? The children, some of them will be sidelined.
Of course.
On a lot of things, in education, in attention. And you see, children need love. They need nurturing. They need nurturing from both parents.
But it happens
for them to grow.
But it happens now, though.
If the man is dead or not around, it's different from if he's there and still dismisses you.
It happens now. I mean, look at lots of men who are married, but they have children outside. They have side women. They have children outside, whatever it is. And the same thing happens whether they're in a polygamous relationship that they're living in one house or whether they're living in another house and it's a side chick. All of these things are happening now anyway. And children do suffer because, you know, sort of for men, they can't always cope with a large family. You know what I'm saying?
So why do they go into it then? If they cannot cope with a large family, then why do they go in? Why are they being polygamous? Are they being polygamous because his mother said, take one from the village to add to the one you met in the city?
You have to ask a man the question, and he'll probably say to you, a man doesn't like to eat steak every day. He likes variation.
Does he know how much a woman doesn't like to eat?
So if I've asked many men that question, and they'll say to you, I don't know about the African men, but I know Jamaican men will say to you, a man doesn't want to eat chicken every day. Sometimes he wants to have steak, sometimes he wants to have fish, and that's why he likes the variation of having more than one woman or having
Does he marry them all?
I've never seen any Jamaican man marrying, you know, 2 women. But
even the conscious ones.
Yes. I don't know it. I've never seen it happening. I haven't had the experience, but I know that they will have more than one woman. They'll have their wife and they'll have their side chicks, or if they're not in a committed relationship, they're going to have more than one woman. And that's the way that they play the game. You know? It's just a people's thing.
It's a choice thing.
And it is a choice.
It's not a choice thing. If you're a Muslim and you're, in your environment, this is what everyone does.
Then you don't have that choice.
No.
But if you do have that choice, then it becomes a choice, and you freely do those things. And
but you may not be able to manage or handle the extra load that you put on. Apart from, women are, having one. There are certain women who just one of her is enough. Having two or more causes a huge furore in a home. There is jealousy, envy, miserable business, all the feelings.
And I think that's why it's important as individuals, and being a woman myself, it's best that you really just work on your own self. You have to learn to work on your emotions. You've got to learn to work on your jealousy. You've got to learn to work on your forgiveness.
Are you working on it because you are in...
Not because you're in a relationship, but because it's good for you. Because all those pain that you're absorbing from being so in love with an individual, and you're not feeling as if you're getting what it is that you want out of it.
Or what you need.
Or what you need out of it. Then, of course, these are the things that can bring so much stress. It can bring emotional sickness. It can bring on mental health. It brings on so much. And then you're not really paying your children the attention that you should pay your attention. And your kids are not, sort of getting the right love and support that they need, because you're so involved in trying to get the love and support that you want from this man. And it's not there.
There is a program on it's on YouTube, and it's on some of these American channels, and it's called Sister Wives. There's another one. I've forgotten the name of the other program, but they're all in these kind of relationships where one man, he has 3 wives, 4 wives, etc. The Mormons as well, they have those kind of relationships. Invariably there are problems. Some are jealous more than others. Some are more accepting. Some, especially the first wives of all of these relationships, they are accepting because they knew it was going to happen.
Yes.
They're not happy, but because they're the first wives, they have more power.
The power.
And it is power that keeps them there.
Yes, that keeps them there.
So, and then more invariably also, the last ones that come, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th wives, they are
struggling.
They struggle a lot, and they leave a lot.
They struggle a lot.
Yeah, they leave
because
a lot.
The other wives are going to gang upon them, and it's about who can sort of be the most powerful within the... There's always going to be those dynamics in life. I don't think we can't avoid it. And that's why it's important that as we go through life, we need to first work on ourselves, really. And I think when we put that work on ourselves and work on ourselves so that we can work on our children, rather than thinking about giving everything to another individual, and then we get disappointed, because one of the things is trust is about learning to trust yourself. It's not about giving your power to say I'm going to trust someone else. It's about you. And that's why we get so disappointed when we put our trust in others. Nobody else can do it for us but ourselves. And that's why it's important that it's about me, that individual, me loving me, and me trusting me.
We're about to wrap up because we've got 3 minutes, and I don't want Norma to be talking and then I won't be able to say bye-bye. So I'm starting now. We've got 2 minutes, and I don't know. To wrap up, I don't know for the radio. I don't know where to go with this, because we still haven't got to the bottom of it. It's just 1 hour, and
you've got to have a man.
I
think it has to be a man.
I had a man.
A lot of those questions.
I had a man who was coming on the show, and he was very mouthy. And I'm saying this, and I don't care what he thinks at this moment, because he promised me he would come on and he would talk, and he felt that polygamy was the right thing, and it was anthropological, and that was the history of humans, etc., etc., etc. And at the last minute, his wife stopped him, because then he called me this morning and he said to me, my wife is not very happy about the whole thing, and we had an argument, and she decided blah blah
There you
blah.
go.
So he could not make it, and I said fine. But I was quite stunned by that, because here you are, you're so mouthy on the issue,
Yes,
and
there
you
you
couldn't
go.
even come on
There
the
you
show.
go. There
So
you
he
go.
can't be a polygamist, and he, you know, even if he tried. Now, people, thank you very much for listening. I'm very grateful. It has been, the time went very fast.
Too fast. It's a big subject.
It's a huge subject.
And we're never ever going to get a clear
So
answer
we're
with
gonna
it.
come back one of these days. We have to. But thank you all for listening, and thank you very much, radio listeners and all of that. Facebook and others, we will carry on for just a little bit more, but the news will come on very soon. Thank you so much for listening. Polygamy, as you say, I am not sure if I would accept it.
Mhm.
I'm not sure.
And that's okay.
Because I think that it will affect my children.
Mhm.
And even if I'm the first wife or all of that, I will be mistrustful. I don't like people being in my house that I don't know. And I don't trust women too much, even though I will do anything for a woman. I need my space, and I need my children to have their space. And I need to feel comfortable in my setup.
Of course.
And I think to bring someone into my setup would upset my apple cart. Now, I say this because I did not have that in my growing up. So it is not an alien concept, but it's not a concept that I
want to participate in.
That's it.
I mean, for me, I believe it can work. It's not something that I would want a woman to be in my space, and I agree with you. But if the man chooses to have more than one woman outside of the house, then that's okay. So if so the modern day polygamous relationship does go on, and if that's the case, I'm cool with that. I can deal with that. But I would rather be in my space, in my house, without her. And if I had children, then I would, sort of the same. I do believe the same as you, without a doubt. But it does work, and for some people it can work, and in some cultures it has worked. But there'll always be problems. There's no getting away from it. Even if that person does not live in your house, there's going to be jealousy. There's going to be emotions and feelings, and all kind of things are going to come out of being in a relationship where the man that you love has another woman, or you don't know if he really loves the other woman more than you. You don't know if she's getting more than you. So there's always going to be those things. So definitely.
Well, you've said a lot. I think we've thrashed it enough in the hour that we have been allotted.
And maybe we can get a man to input on
I'm
it
gonna
eventually.
try.
Maybe not this one, but I do understand what he's saying, that it has been something that, can you imagine when we were evolving as human beings? It must have happened. It happened.
It happened for the strongest to live.
It happened.
It happened for the strongest to live, and there have always been more women on earth than. But it's women who actually nurture. And you know that tribe where the men dress up and all of that you were saying. Yes, because it would be fun actually that if you were not controlled and confined in these religion and social and cultural and all of that, that you choose the man that because I like huge strapping men. So then you would have your children with this huge strapping man, and
And I think it's about all of us learning to be authentic in life. And I think what we're trying to do now is to live an authentic life, and also live a life that is very honest as well. And I think when we can do that, even if it's our feelings, and we can, have our feelings become more validated, more authentic, and more open, I think certain things we can, sort of get through life far more happier than we are now.
We're happy. We're happy. Bye-bye, people. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you again. Norma, you're a star. And thank you so much, people. I am now going to go off air and go home and have a cup of tea.
Thank you. Thank you very much.